everyone. My name is Kirk Bachman, and welcome back to The Ultimate Dish. Today, we're thrilled to welcome Chef Charlie Mitchell, the Michelin-starred and James Beard Award-winning executive chef who leads Saga, a 2-star Michelin restaurant in New York City. At just 33 years old, Mitchell has earned remarkable accolades, including his win as Best Chef in New York City at the 2024 James Beard Awards. This marks his second year as a nominee and makes him the only New York City chef to secure a victory at that year's awards. Before joining Saga, Mitchell helmed Clover Hill, where he made history by earning the restaurant a Michelin star and becoming the first black chef in New York City to achieve this honor. In 2022, he also received the Michelin Guide New York Young Chef Award, further establishing himself as a trailblazer. A Detroit native, Mitchell is redefining fine dining by creating an atmosphere inspired by New York's rich artistic culture. His experience at renowned establishments like 11 Madison Park and Bethany have shaped his deep understanding of luxury dining. As he continues to ascend in the culinary world, Mitchell remains dedicated to fostering mentorship and promoting diversity within the hospitality industry. So get ready for a conversation about breaking barriers, honoring mentors, and creating a kitchen culture where everyone can thrive. And there he is. Good morning. How are you, Chef?
Good morning. How you doing?
Good. I'm good. It's quite an intro. That's a lot in a very, very short amount of years. You're so young and talented. I'm super excited. Can I ask real quick, New York City, you're in the restaurant, which is the right answer, right? Where are you, Charlie? I'm in the restaurant. Of course I am. What's going on in New York? I'm sorry about the Mets, but I'm happy about the Tigers. Happy about the Tigers.
Yes. I mean, New York City is always great to me. It's always alive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The Mets,
Yeah.
but I feel like New York City is getting ready for the Knicks season, like the Knicks have really sets the city on fire. You know what I mean?
Are you a sports guy?
Yeah.
Got to be a little bit, right?
Yeah, always. It's like the only thing that can really, if I'm attempting to get my mind off of food, like sports helps, following the narratives and whatnot. But
That's
big
good.
big NFL, but I love sports.
I love that. I'm right there with you. So a few weeks ago, so I sit in Boulder. So a few weeks ago, you were in Boulder. You were with your great friend, Bobby Stuckey from Frosca. It gives me chills to even say that, right? We love the team at Frosca. We actually named one of our learning labs here at the school after Frosca, and we have a big poster of Bobby in the hallway, and they hire a lot of our students, and that's the North Star for a lot of our students. Hey, what do you want to do when you graduate culinary school? Oh, I want to work at Frosca. Well, let's just talk about that for a minute. Let's get you through school first and get you a little experience. But how was that experience?
I mean, it was amazing. You know what I mean? First and foremost, it was my first time in Colorado.
Okay.
It was my first time seeing, I haven't traveled a lot throughout my life. So it was my first time seeing a mountain so large, so just like the drive from the airport to Boulder, I was just like really taken back by how beautiful it was. I think that's what really hit me at first, and then working with the Frosca team was awesome. They're great, and I've always been a fan of longevity when I started this career, just trying to figure out how, the great ones do it for so long, so to be around somebody like Bobby, I was just really like, yo, this guy is a legend, like,
Yeah.
like what he's done in his career and like the amount of energy he has and how close he is with his team and how he touches all of his restaurants and kind of how he's just like the main character in the space still, it was just really incredible to like be around,
And a huge advocate for all of us in the industry, right? And I think one of the things I love most about the team there is, you mentioned, coming down 36 and you see what we call the flat irons, right? And kind of the beginning of the Rocky Mountains to the west. And, Boulder's not big, right? 125,000 people. And to have cuisine at that level, that's one plus. But the fact that, Bobby's so connected to people like you and others around the country, he brings, talent and stars and experiences to the restaurant that we would, never have the opportunity to engage in otherwise, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I was even, right before the dinner starts, you kind of like do introductions, you kind of speak a little bit, and Well, first of all, we had dinner the night before, and Bobby's not gonna like this story, but we had dinner the night before, and they opened a taste menu with a glass of Krug, champagne, and I'm like, oh, like this is my favorite. And Bobby's like, I remember the first time I had my glass. I remember my first glass of Krug, and I'm like, really? He's like, yeah. He's like, it was in 1992, and I was like, dude, I was born in '92.
No way. Oh my
And
gosh.
and then like the second night, I was like kind of talking to the guests at the dinner, and I was just like, yo, like it's always an honor for someone like me who like Frosta's been open. I think they celebrated 20 years.
Yeah.
So it's been
Yeah.
open, and I was like, I've only been professionally cooking for 11 years.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the opportunity to be in such an institution and these places I've been looking up to for all of these years is like really special for me. You know what I mean?
No, that's so well said. And it's interesting. This past weekend, on Saturday they did, or Sunday, they had what's called the Boulder-thon
Yeah.
here in downtown, not far from the restaurant. So 15,000 people. First, they have a full um, um, a full race, 26-mile marathon. They have a half marathon. They have a 10K. They have a 5K. They have a kids race. Uh, so I showed up with about 20 students, and I did the 5K. I did come in ahead of the kids race and a guy named Elvis, by the way. So I felt I felt validated. But later in the afternoon, I sent Bobby some pictures and Peter over at Frosca, and of course 9 people from Frosca ran the race. Of course, they
Wow.
ran the more intense
Hmm.
marathon, but yeah, that's what's really really special about Boulder. But let's talk about you, Chef. I have to start with something that's been on my mind since I've been reading about your journey over the last,
Uh-oh.
several months. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, you describe yourself, I'm from Chicago, so I totally get it, right? You describe yourself as a kid from Detroit, despite all these incredible accolades, James Beard, the
Yeah.
first black chef in New York City to earn a Michelin star. How do you, or do you still feel like that kid from Detroit? They can't take that away from you. And how did your family, your grandma, you know, and your upbringing in Detroit shape your approach to cooking, and hospitality?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you can let the psychologist get into deeper stuff about how you stay connected to like your inner child and whatever. But for me, absolutely. And I put emphasis on that more so because of my, the emotional connection that I have to dining in restaurants.
Mm.
Was there was a reason why I kind of like made that. Half of the reason why I said that is because I'm a LeBron fan and he goes by the kid from Akron, right? That's the other half of that reason, going back to sports, right? But
Oh, I love it.
for me, it was like the fondest memories. I mean, it's like all over, but like holidays, Sunday dinners at grandmother's house, etc. Right? But I just genuinely remember being a kid and being so impressed by how, both my grandmothers growing up always were able to feed anybody who came over.
God,
Right? Rain,
I,
sleet, snow,
they always
anything.
had food. They
Always,
always had food.
right? It was
Always.
food, right?
Right? Right?
From friends, family, neighbors, I don't know, enemies, people at church they didn't even really like, they would bring food to, right? You know what I mean? So to me, that was always very special. And to me, that's what restaurants are. Obviously, we can't give the food away for free, which would be lovely if you could, right?
Wouldn't that be something? Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
But I
yeah,
think like to me, that's why I love staying in restaurants because I love the idea of that. Love like, anybody can come here and come have our food any day of the week. And it's always
yeah,
something here for you to eat. Right. So that's the connection to me. And like that feeling, those memories are always special because I was also just like at a young age, I was so impressed. Like I was like, how does she have so much food in here? It's like a never ending,
yeah,
it's like
yeah,
a deep freezer. It's always something. If it's not ready, she can pull out the freezer, have it ready for you in 20 minutes,
yeah,
and
yeah. Always an apron on, right? Always an apron
yeah.
on. Yeah,
And that was
yeah,
so
yeah,
impressive and so special to me. And it still remains that today.
yeah, yeah. It's interesting. One comment and then a question. That really I got chills when you talked about the fact that they're always ready. This day and age, and no offense to my buddies and stuff, but it's like when you tell somebody, "Hey, I'm coming over," or they invite you over, their second sentence is, "Hey, do you mind grabbing some pizza or burgers on the way?" And I'm like, "What?" I mean, whatever happened to just being ready
Yeah.
when company? We used to call it companies coming over, right?
Yeah,
Companies coming
exactly.
over, and
Yeah.
and you were just ready. It's just the way it was, right?
Yeah. Of
Um,
course, of course.
you know, I have to ask. You've said that, and I've read that Detroit, helped you a little bit with tough skin. Same with me. I remember my father's grew up as a pastry chef. He's 90 now, but it was the same thing. He would take me downtown when he was delivering wedding cakes and stuff like that, downtown Chicago, and he used to always say,
Mhm.
walk proud with your shoulders back, and have confidence, be tough. Otherwise, people will take away from you and stuff.
Yeah.
How do you how did that help you navigate and give you perspective growing up in Detroit, anywhere for that matter, to have tough skin and then navigate that into this intense but beautiful world of fine dining where you, like you just said, you have to welcome guests with open arms from anywhere, enemies or foes, right? And and
Yeah.
and and give them an experience that they'll never forget.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like Detroit is Detroit, right? It's a great city, a lot of culture, music, history, fashion, all that kind
Oh
of stuff,
gosh,
right? Like I love
sports, yeah, yeah,
sports. But it's a tough city. You know what I mean? And for me, the kitchen was at a young age, between I really found the kids between 19, 21 years old. And, there's so many options at that age, coming home from college, coming and like so many options to get into like, fun stuff, but also bad stuff, right? That you can
yeah,
kind of get
yeah.
into that
Distractions,
vibe,
yeah, yeah,
distractions, whatever you want
yeah,
to call it, right? So to me, when I found the kitchen, it was about like the discipline and the structure, and it kept me out of trouble, and it felt, safe to me, right? Whereas some
yeah.
people felt like, I went through enough adversity or situations or tough situations at school, outside of school, playing sports at a young age, etc. And, to me, when you're in that environment, like we're in the streets or whatever you want to call it, or in the neighborhoods, whatever, things could, you could get, I don't know, you could get beat up by a kid, or you can get into worse trouble, things like that. Like I'm in the kitchen, like none of that is happening, right? Like none of that is happening, right? So
People
no
are
matter
working, they're focused. Yeah,
they're
yeah,
working, so no matter how much, your chef is screaming at you, or maybe they push you a little bit, or something like that's happening, but it's not violence, right? Like
no,
it's
no,
not life threatening, like, so to me, I was like, oh, I was really able to see that the first time. I was like, oh, this is just work.
yeah,
And
yeah,
we just care a lot that the consomme is cloudy. And if the consomme is not cloudy next time, like I'll be fine. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And, I think of some kids who've never been through like tough situations in life, and they don't really build resilience, and they've never dealt with like failure or anything like that. They take it a lot more personal, not professionally. And for me, it was really, really easy to take it professionally, not personally, like right out the gate, you know? And I think that made the biggest difference, and just having tough skin is like, words are words, but nobody's waiting for you outside the kitchen at the end of the night.
yeah, yeah.
Nobody's, doing any of that kind of stuff. So to me, it was just like, all right, have tough skin. You can take it. It's just words. And at the end of the day, like, at least the chefs I worked for, nobody was like picking on me just because they felt like it. It was always about the work. And once I realized quickly, like, hey, if you do the work right, you can fly below the radar. That was the
I
answer.
Yeah, I love that. I love the fact that you use the pragmatic example of the consomme being cloudy or not. I mean
Mhm.
that just says a lot. Did the kindness perhaps come from your family, from your grandma, from being around, food like that? Just
Like
welcoming.
in my approach to hospitality.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think like obviously we all know that food brings people together, right?
Yes,
And
yes, yes. In a beautiful way.
in
Yeah.
a beautiful way. No, and like no matter what, like some growing up, sometimes funerals were like some of the best cookouts you could have, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And
sure. Yeah.
I think that's special. It's a very intimate act, like cook for someone, right? So it needs to be met with kindness. Otherwise, it's like a weird thing, right? Like,
Yeah. Eat that.
like exactly, right? Like, otherwise, it's like a weird thing if it's not. I think like people joke about the movie The Menu a lot because obviously it's like a movie, but like to me, it's like if you aren't welcoming and kind and like setting a vibe for people, then like why would they want to like break bread with you? Like that's just like contradictory to this entire
Yeah. Yeah, the whole
thing,
craft. Yeah, yeah,
right? But I
yeah.
do think like as a cook, when you're a young cook, you feel like it's like you versus food or like you versus your sous chef. So sometimes you're not necessarily happy as a cook by making that food. And that's something that I try to preach a lot to my team. It's like, hey, we're doing this for the guests. It's not for me. It's not for you. It's like, but you have to find that thing inside of you that like you're cooking for people. You're doing this extra step for the guests, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
when you cook from that place, I feel like you can really, really enjoy it a lot more.
I love, you know, your earlier comments about how you felt safe in the kitchen. And was there this? I'll give you a perfect example of what it was for me. I grew up in my parents' bakery and kitchen, so there was always kind of this assumption that you're going to do this. But I remember, I was really young, and Mark Miller was really popular. He did Southwest cuisine in Santa Fe,
Mhm.
and a bunch of restaurants all over, and there was a there was a I think it was a Food and Wine issue, and on the cover it was like this kind of Southwest steak on a silver plate, and there was this giant bunch of herbs, rosemary, thyme, oregano, and it was all kind of wrapped up in a twine, thrown on top of this butter dripping off of this grilled steak. And I remember ripping that page off, and I carried it around with me for years. It
Mhm.
was the weirdest thing in the world. I mean, I thought I was going to play center field for the Cubs. I mean, I really thought that was going to happen, right? So
Yeah.
I ran from this industry until I saw that cover, and it's a true story. I mean, it really inspired me. I want to cook food like that, and I did a little bit of Southwest, but it wasn't about Southwest cuisine. It was just about cuisine. It was about, look at that, look what you can create. Was there a moment where you were in that kitchen looking around and like something happened? You cooked something, someone shared something with you, and you were like, this is it. This is where I'm going to be.
No, you actually hate my answer. Um, my first real fluttery inspiration was Iron Chef.
No way.
That was
Really?
my first thing. Yeah,
Really?
Iron Chef was like I was a cook. I didn't go home and do homework. I went home and watched TV all night, right? I was like, I got through the backpack like this can all wait. I'm locked in on TV. It was
You
like
sound like my son. Yeah.
106 in Park, Food Network, right? So really was Iron Chef was like, and I was obsessed with being a sushi chef at the time. So I was very obsessed with like the detail and like the intensity of Iron Chef, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I think that mix with I was like, yo, this is crazy. So I got really into that. And then my grandmother used to actually have a recipe book. And I was like, I started connecting the dots. I'm like, yo, this lady is crazy. Like, she's actually the only home cook I knew growing up that was actually like writing down recipes, looking in cookbooks, and like cooking for us. And I thought that was like, I was like, okay, like this is a very serious thing, you know? And that's
Yeah,
what really
yeah.
made me want to cook. And I looked into being a sushi chef first. But then, the American in me was like, wait, I got to wash rice for 10 years. And I was like, that's not going to work. Like, I got to be 25 with a house and a wife, when you're young, that's how you think. Right. So I was like, well, that's not going to work. um, and then, so that was like my first initial answer. And then when I got my first real job outside of Detroit, the first cookbook I ever saw was like the Levin Masson Park cookbook. And then I was just like, what are these guys doing out there? Then that's then they introduced me into, the Robichons, the Scaffiers, the Gordon Ramsays in that kitchen. And I was just like overwhelmed with what cooking could actually be. That was like the first cookbook I ever looked at. And I was like, wow, this is crazy.
I'm looking for my copy of Unreasonable Hospitality. Um, so
Yeah.
you were there when Will was there, right?
Mm-hmm.
At
You have to tell
yeah,
him. Yeah.
yeah. It's must reading for every instructor at Escoffier.
Yeah. Is it?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's just such a great. It's a great lesson, right, in hospitality. Um, Chef, can you talk to us a little bit about yourself making history, first Black chef in New York to earn a Michelin star? I just can't even imagine, like it must be this like out of body sort of experience. Did you, I'm sure it takes time to really absorb it all, but did you even know at the time the significance of that moment and what that represented for you, your family, this industry?
No, absolutely not. right? Like sometimes I wish I could say I did, but no. I mean, when I first learned about Michelin stars, I knew that I'd never been a black chef that had to get 3 stars. So that was pretty easy. It was pretty obvious to know that there was no black chef with 3 stars at the time, right? Like it's always a short list of 3-star restaurants in this country or even in the world, right? So that was very obvious. It had never, ever, ever, ever crossed my mind that no black chef have ever gotten 1 star in New York City. And I found out the same time everyone else found out, right? It was like after in the ceremony.
Really? Wow.
Yep. At the end of the
Wow.
ceremony, we were on our way, which I'll never forget. We were on our way to our after party, and a buddy of mine had he Instagrammed it. Like he put on Instagram on his story and was like, he tagged me in it, and I was like, that's no way that that's true, right? And then I found myself like Googling it. I mean, it's New York City, right? And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was just like, it's no way, you know? And then from there, even then, I didn't think people cared that much, to be honest, right? Like I was like, okay, cool. I'm a food nerd. Nobody really cared about Michelin stars outside of people who care about food. And then once I saw the impact and how many people that it would inspire, and like even how proud my family was, I was like, wow, this is much bigger than me, you know? And then I think that's when it really hit me. It actually took a couple months to hit me about like how much bigger it was than myself. And then from there, I think it's just really special, you know, and like lucky, you know, you're like j- just kind of lucky in that moment to be able to be that, you know, impactful for a lot of cooks that look like me, and it's still going, you know, like it's just,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, absolutely taken back by your humility and your genuine, um, um, kindness. So I mean, congratulations on all of that
Thank
success.
you.
I
Thank
mean,
you.
how does your success and your humility and your style open the doors for other young cooks to, try to just sample a little bit of that success? I'm on Saga's website, and I see, how much I love the fact that you list all of your team members in the kitchen
Mhm.
on the
Mhm.
website. God, it's just, it says so much. How do you open the door? Is there a lot of pressure on you?
uh, I don't know. I don't know if it's added pressure. I think like naturally, you know, choosing to work in fine dining, you add a lot of pressure to yourself. Choosing to be in
Yeah.
New York City, you welcome a lot of pressure, you know. You know, I think for me, it's about obviously representation, and obviously when you see something, you can believe it, right? So
Hmm.
people who are watching me and they see something that they can actually accomplish. But to me, it's also about, you know, being honest with them about what it takes and what got me here and what keeps me here, right? And that was one of the biggest uh pieces of advice for me was from, you know, Chef Kent. When, you know, for me, I reached out to him. It was just everything was hitting the fan all at once, you know, Clover Hill, Mission Star, media stuff. People are like, why don't you do TV? Why don't you write a book and all this kind of stuff? Where I'm like, yo, I just started. Like, this is happening, but it's like, it's really like my first year. And like, you know, he was the one who told me, like, yo, you just make sure you like stay in the kitchen, keep working on your craft, and like the rest will continue to follow, you know? And I think like at that time, I just needed somebody who, as big as him, to like tell me that, because you just kind of get pulled in different directions in this career life. It's always hard to navigate what to do. And that's the same thing, same advice that I continue to pass down, which is like, yo, if you stick to the craft, if you want to do something like this, the rest will fall in line. Because yes, it's nice to have a little spotlight and people be proud of you and etc. But what's better is when people actually come to the restaurant and they're like, okay, like I see why,
I
right?
get it.
I love what you do. I get it, you know, and they
Yeah.
kind of understand it and they can taste the work and intention behind it, right? And I think like to me, that's like the biggest piece is like being able to see someone that you can believe in and believe that you can do it, but also, you know, getting like real life advice, you know, which is like,
Yeah.
hey, like build your craft, be a great cook, be a great chef, and then like the rest will happen.
I love how you use the term craft a lot and
Hmm.
cook a lot. My
Yeah.
again, growing up in my dad's kitchen, when you're young, you're like, hey, when are they going to call me chef? And when am I going to get this? And when's my name on the door? And my father always said to me, just strive to be a good cook for life. Everything else will
Hmm.
take care of itself. So yeah, I love that philosophy. One of the things that to me really stands out, chef, about your leadership style is safe to learn. Your safe to learn philosophy. You've talked about creating environments where people, aren't scared in the kitchen, that it's
Mhm.
safe and they're not being, chased around. Can you tell us a little bit about how that philosophy, your philosophy, differs? Maybe it doesn't differ as much anymore from traditional fine dining and the culture that some people have in their minds around kitchens.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's more like, my very first stage in fine dining, which I was in way over my head, was in San Francisco at Benu.
Oh my gosh,
And
yeah, yeah.
I remember, I'm fresh out of Detroit at the time. I'd never been in a fine dining kitchen. I really emailed them like on a whim, and they were like, "Yeah, sure, you can come." And I was like, "I don't know where." I had no
What am
idea
I
what I was really
doing?
walking into. Right? I had no idea what I was walking into. I had no idea who Corley really was, where he had been at. I just saw a beautiful restaurant, like I want to go here, right? And it always stuck with me that when I was staging there, that they would always give me a task, and then before I would run off, they would say, "Hey, like, do you understand? Like, do you understand the direction I just gave you? Do you understand what you're being asked to do?" You know? And at first I was always like, it really threw me off because most, a lot of the time, I won't say most, but a lot of the times you're just like thrown a task and kind of felt like you just have to figure it out. And if you don't know, you're nervous to tell your sous chef you don't know because I don't know, may get sent home, you may get fired, or they may give the task to someone else that may know, right? And I
Hmm.
always felt I never loved that feeling, So I knew that when it was my turn, that I would resort back to that, which is like, it's okay to say you don't know. It's okay to tell me you never done this before. Because the more you tell me, the better I am at teaching you in the first place, right? So, like, just tell me, let's talk about it, because, like, you're here to learn. That's the whole point. Every cook comes into the restaurant like this, like, "Hey, chef, I'm here to learn. I'm here to learn." But then it's like, well, if you guys are here to learn, then why are you afraid to ask a question? Like, that was
Yeah,
always contradictory to me. So, to me, that was always super, super important that it was when it was my turn, it's like, "Hey, you know, talk to me." And also, I'm a young chef, so sometimes, like, we're learning together. And I'm
yeah,
very
yeah,
transparent like that. Like, hey, like, I do know a lot, but for me to stay on my toes, I have to get myself out of my comfort zone because I'm still building my cuisine, right? So if I'm comfortable saying like I'm working on this new dish and this came out bad and I hate it, you know, in front of my cooks, like I don't care about doing stuff like that. And I think that it's just very important to have that. And I think like in some kitchens I worked in, that environment was there. But some kitchens, whoever knew the most did the most and they got ahead the fastest. You
yeah, yeah. Well, in the kitchen and as in life, right? Sometimes that happens, but the lesson is very good for students as well that are going to culinary school who probably put too much pressure on themselves at times as well.
Mhm.
Ask the questions. You're here to learn. Let's learn
Yeah.
together. I
Mhm.
love that philosophy. How do you connect that to this Michelin world, right? This benchmark, this milestone that defines excellence in dining, and still keep that supportive learning mentorship sort of environment. It's tough, I imagine.
Yeah, well, like, that's the hard part, right? Because, like, you know, you you're like doing 2 things at once, right? Which is, like, you're trying to build a culture, teach cooks, set them up for success, get them to move on, sometimes you have to let them bump their head a little bit. Sometimes you have to let them fail a little bit so
Yeah,
that they
yeah,
can learn that lesson. But you also have to protect the product,
yeah,
and you
yeah,
have to, you know, every plate counts, every guest counts, everyone's a VIP. People are paying, $300-$400 for their meal after alcohol, upward of 1,000, right? So then you have to also protect the product at the same time. And that is, walking that tightrope, right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
like let them get 80, 90% and then like, okay, we got to be there to fix it. Sous chef team, you got to be there to make sure that like you do protect the product. And I think that is the balancing act. But I think it's about hiring, to be honest. Like I take hiring very seriously. And if you can hire the right cooks, oftentimes like they know when to sound the alarm, they know when to ask for help. They care enough to not try to skate something past you that's not approved, And I find that is where you can have a little bit, peace of mind and security and not be like a crazy chef, because if you feel like every cook is like out to get you, you just end up in a place where you don't want to be.
Well, I love the feedback loop, right? I'll use another sports analogy. My son's a sophomore in high school and he's a decent baseball player, and they're playing fall ball right now, and last week he caught a high fly. I think it was in left field, and he's got an arm, and he wants to show off a little bit, and he had a runner at third that was tagging up, and he had it in his mind that he was going to nail the guy at home. He didn't get him. he caught the fly, but it's just too short of a distance. But
Yeah.
while he was being fancy with his arm strength, the guy on first went to second, and the guy on second went to third. So when he came in, the coach did the right thing. Hey, great catch, great throw. In the future, got to think about the whole game, right?
Right.
We got out of the inning, but this guy on second could have scored again if somebody hit a single, right? So, that kind of mentorship can transcend, the kitchens, right? And
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
restaurants, right? It's in life. Can we talk a little bit about Daniel Hume and Chef Kent?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just in, you know, um, leadership. How did their leadership, their style, the vibe in the kitchen with those legends influence your style and perhaps your approach?
Well, I mean, those two guys are very, very different. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like, I think, I think
great
they're very,
answer. I like that. Yeah, yeah,
I think like, working, for Daniel, it was just like, it was the moment really where you're just kind of like nothing else. It's either like perfect, excellent, right? Or it doesn't exist here,
yeah,
you know?
yeah,
And to see like how he built a machine, this institution, this culture of that level of excellence was just like incredible.
yeah,
So for me, I was just like, wow, like this, just like cooking there, working there, you're just like, this is bananas. You know what I mean? And and it was just special to me. That was like super duper inspiring. You know what I mean? It was just raw, like wow. And it also just showed me like how hard it was, honestly, too, right? Like it was inspiring, but in some ways it was a little bit like discouraging in some ways because you're just like, how could anyone ever have a restaurant like this? Like I was like, how could I ever run a place this immaculate and with the level of hospitality that they were doing in the dining room, with the level of food we were doing in the kitchen, the cleanliness, the organization, the systems. It was really like, okay, this guy is like a chef. He's not just like a good cook with like good ideas. I never saw him really touch a stove at the time, right? But he was really just like, conducting just like crazy, intense like business. And he was really like showed me what really a three-Michelin star chef was about, you know? And
yeah,
I think,
yeah,
I never got the opportunity to actually like cook under, Chef James. We met more so like as I don't know, I guess like as colleagues. I wouldn't call us peers because he was obviously an OG, you know. But his style was a little bit more, push from behind. He really wants to like build up his team. He really instilled confidence in everybody. Even myself, I didn't work with him. He made time for any and everyone to connect with and make them feel like a part of his journey and a contributor to what he had going on. You know what I mean? So they were like very two different approaches. Where they both had like a train that was moving full speed, but they were just very different. I think 11 Madison Park just taught you just like it was just like relentless.
yeah,
It was
yeah,
just like absolutely just like relentless being there at that time. Versus not saying it's not challenging to to be a part of KHE, and it's definitely like a demand for excellence at the same time. It's just a little bit a little bit a little bit different,
yeah,
and I think that
yeah,
they both influence my style in different ways. And I think you have to, for me, it's about having to do a little bit of both in different ways, right? Like knowing when to put my foot down and be like, hey, like this is what I believe in. I think this is right. And like, channeling my inner like Daniel Hume, like this is right. I don't care what anybody else thinks,
this is how we're doing
you
it.
know?
Yeah.
And because you have to believe in yourself that much, right? And I channel James a lot in the sense of just like working with the team, teamwork, collaboration, you know, uh, culture building, getting
Yeah.
everybody on the same page. to do something special together and like that, really honing in on like teamwork and kind of having this more so like championship mentality.
Yeah.
Like, let's
Yeah.
do this thing together. Let's get this championship ring together. You know what I mean? And I think like at times you have to be a little bit of both, to work at this level in New York City.
Yeah. I mean, again, using sports analogies, everything you read about Michael Jordan, there was no other way other
Right.
than the way
Yeah.
he was going to ask you to perform.
Hmm.
And LeBron and others that have risen to the top of their sport and their craft. For chef, for culinary students who listen to our chat, and they're about to enter professional kitchens or re-enter after their education, I really think this is crucial. Your perspective is crucial. What do you believe a young culinarian should look for? What did you look for in a mentor? I love the way you're able to discern the difference in Daniel and James's style and how it impacted you. Is there any recommendation or advice that you have for a young culinarian of how they should approach that?
Um, well, I mean, I think it's challenging, right? I think like for me, I took the approach that, hey, I can learn from anyone, either what to do or what not to do, But I think like to me, it's about where I could have been a lot better at starting off was like, you got to learn how to listen. You got to learn how to take advice. You got to be open minded to that. But I also think like we really want to get with the ones who are willing to really share information. I think that's important, right? I think like I was always a big question asker, and you want to be willing to learn. You want to ask questions, but like the ones who are really willing to like give you the game, they're not intimidated by you. They're not afraid you're coming for their sous chef job or afraid you're going to take over their restaurant or a cook that's not afraid you're going to take their station. Like those are the good eggs, in my opinion, right? And I think you always look for that, right? Like if your meat roast will show you how they cook and give you their tips and their tricks, it's like, okay, like latch on to that person, see what else information you can get out of them,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
And do that from the top down, all the way to the top. You know what I mean? I think like those are the ones who, to me, are been the most impact with me throughout my career, who would just give me as much game as information as possible. Because like understanding that like in this world of cooking is like we're not actually competing with each other. Like there's enough guests to go around. In reality, there's enough Michelin stars to go around, right? And like at least in my opinion, and I think like we just should be like one big community and just give each other as much help as possible.
Yeah, yeah. I was going to next ask how you approach training young cooks. I think you answered that, but what I think I'll ask then is, what would you want those young employees, teammates that you're mentoring to learn beyond cooking technique?
Well,
It's tough, yeah.
yeah, I think like for me, it's about also teaching them the value, which like you referenced, like working for James, and also working for Daniel. Both of them are aligned though, in like professionalism is first, right? Like
Yeah,
they both
yeah.
have that very in common, right? Like you got to show up, you got to be professional. You got to look good, whether you have to shave every day at EMP or whether it's here, you got to have your beard trimmed and lined up, showing up on time, being prepared. And I think that translates into the real world as well. So I think like that's something I always continue to preach is like, you gotta get good at cooking, but you also gotta get good at life and being professional. And that's gonna help you get ahead. And like hoping that they take that serious after they leave here as well. We're also at a time where I also encourage them to learn more about the restaurant business. I'm very transparent with my cooks. I think when you're young and you're just like, oh, caviar, truffles, and tweezers and fluid gels, which like is great, and I love all that kind of stuff. But in my opinion, it's not really just that era anymore where you can just be, the wizard behind the stove, right? Like if you ever want to get to a top, you're going to need to learn a little bit of real estate. You need to learn a little bit of finance. You're going to need to learn some leadership skills, some people skills. You're going to need to learn all this stuff that I was not prepared for. So to me, I'm just like always like pushing all of those things on them. So I hope that one day they can actually be, entrepreneurs or business owners and be successful. I remember, when I started at Clover Hill, my biggest issue was like getting the trash picked up, and I had an oven that kept breaking. And I'm like, man, I'm just trying to work on this new menu. And like they won't pick up the trash. And like the building keep calling me, and like I don't know how to fix this issue. And
Oh
I'm like,
my
I don't know
gosh.
how to fix this oven. Like food wasn't the problem at all. Like it rarely is if you're really locked into this. Like the dishes and the food is kind of not. It's not the hardest part. You
Yeah.
know.
Now, I love that you say that because guess what? We struggle with the trash and the equipment at the school as well, by the way. You mentioned Clover Hill. So I hope to segue into taking the big leap. Chef, if we could talk about, from what I've read, one of the most significant transitions in your career, in your young career, moving from Clover Hill, 20-seat Brooklyn restaurant, I can imagine it, to Saga.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're on the 63rd floor, but I think you're close.
I'm on the 66th floor right now, actually.
Above
Yeah.
Manhattan.
Yeah.
What, beyond the trash and the equipment, what was that like leaving Clover Hill and a restaurant you co-founded, by the way, and, where you made history to Saga? And perhaps maybe talk a little bit about James and the impact of losing him, what that had on your life.
Yeah. I mean that's a big question. I think I'll start with I remember me and James were having sushi at Niles Market, and he was like, like I forget the exact words, but he was basically like, yeah, like your restaurant, like give a little restaurant, like it's cute, like eventually you're gonna have to run a real restaurant. And at the time, I'm like, yo, like what are you talking about? Like I've got a Michelin star. What do you mean I'm not running a real restaurant? Like you've eaten my food, like it's real. And then I remember walking into here, and I was like, oh, this is what he meant,
Makes sense.
right?
Yeah,
Is like
yeah.
almost 100 employees. You're running your main dining room menu. It's 4 PDR rooms. You also do the food for the bar overstory above us, which is the world's 50 best bar. 2 Michelin stars, Relais and Chateau property. I had 8 total kitchen staff, including myself at Clover Hill. I have 7 sous chefs here alone. About 20 cooks. Wine director, bar director, culinary director, reservationist, HR department, right? That's just like to start. And so it was really just like a crash course. It's still sometimes a crash course and like the level, like the steps of being like a real like chef and being a real leader and learning how to inspire people on your day off, 7 days a week. In Clover Hill was 5 days, and in the summer we would go down to 4 days. Which is 7 days a week. It's a beast, and like learning how to build a culture, get everybody, inspire everybody, uh, learn everybody's name, touch eight base with everybody, care about everybody. You know what I mean? It was just really like, at first it was really just kind of like, what did I get myself into? But, also in that same conversation, James, he talked about opening Saga, and like, he opened Saga to be, the best restaurant in the world, right? He's like, you don't put a restaurant 60 floors up in a skyscraper in New York City to want it to be a regular average restaurant. And I think like that is still in the DNA in this place. And it's always every day it's about, okay, how can we, like the number one restaurant in the world is kind of arbitrary, it's subjective, et cetera, right? But it's like, what does that mean like to us internally as a team here in the company? Um, and that is, we have a list of things that were super important to him that he's said to me was like, leading with respect, the food, the teamwork, the collaboration, and just trying to not mess this place up. It's such a special restaurant,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
the transition was definitely by far the hardest thing. I don't think I'll ever do anything harder than running this restaurant in the way that I came into it, given the circumstances, and then like the outside pressure as well of like retaining 2 Michelin stars and being left with like accolades to still accrue for this restaurant. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Chef, you've talked about flavor over flair.
Yeah.
And so for our for our listeners, could you provide us with just a little bit more philosophy, into that approach and how, to your point around the expectations at Saga, how you continue to maintain that approach at Saga.
Yeah, again, that started with me because I think I was obsessed with, like, when I first started cooking, I was obsessed with a lot of, like, I think molecular gastronomy was cool at the time, and a lot of Joe Robuchon stuff, and it's like, how many dots can you fit on a plate? How many gels can you make, and can you make things float or smoke? And so I was coming up in that era where, I think it was a lot of that stuff is cool, and like some chefs are really, really, really good at it. But as I started cooking through restaurants, I started eating a lot more. To me, like, I think flavors are more memorable. They connect to you, whether it's hidden points of nostalgia or something that you grew up eating or something you've never tasted before. And I think that connects with people emotionally a lot more than like the visual side of what we do in fine dining. Right. Like, I think the pictures are great, social media is great, but I think, like, how you make that person feel is going to happen through what they taste and what they experience.
Oh gosh, that's
And
beautiful. Yeah.
yeah, so for me, that's the most important thing. Obviously, we're playing, you have a sandbox and we're playing, and you're like getting Michelin stars and stuff like that. So the visual side of it does matter, but it's about throughout the menu is like, okay, especially when it comes like the warm, hot dishes, I'm like, we're not going to sacrifice temperature or flavor for how many touches we can put on the plate. Like,
Oh
that's
my gosh, I'm so happy to hear you say that. Our students want 35 touches with tweezers, right? Before it goes out. And like, you're missing the boat.
yeah, and I was, we were having a fun service a couple weeks ago, I'll call it. And I was telling the cook, I'm like, yo, like, hot food is a technique. Like, hot food is special.
Yeah.
Like, it's the reason why you sauce on the table side is cute, but it's also making sure you have a better chance of the sauce, like, being hot when it hits the plate.
Yeah.
Right. And like, you go out to a lot of experiences and your food is not hot, and like, hot food should be hot and cold food should be cold. And I think there's skill and attention to detail in that, so for me, that's how it always would be, right? Like, the flavor will win over anybody. I don't care how many Michelin stars it has, like, the flavors will prevail.
I think Escoffier is smiling right now. I think he would love to hear you say that. I think he'd also love cornbread with gold caviar. I think he'd also love caviar with brown butter and brioche.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful riff on ice cream and cake, right?
Yeah.
How do you balance that technique, fine dining technique, with the nostalgia that you're presenting? Cornbread with gold caviar. Wow. Where's that come from?
Well, I will say it's a challenge, and I think it's a part of the journey, right? Like, I think, like, for me, I fell in love with a lot of, like, classic fine dining. But as you cook, you just start putting more and more of your personality into the food,
There
hopefully,
you go. Yeah.
right? And I think, and then also it's like just having fun with it, right? Like, sometimes I'll do something just because I think it's funny. Like, I think it's funny to pair cornbread and caviar together. Then you have to make it taste good and taste beautiful and look good. But I just think sometimes I'm like, yo, I think this is kind of hilarious. Let's have a little fun with this bite, And I think, like, it's like that course. We also have a course right now. We do like a tempura fried fish with like a little tartar sauce aioli, which to me is like, it's fun. Like, who doesn't want to eat fried fish dipped in tartar sauce? Like, we all love that, right?
Brings
and then
back memories, right?
Right. You make it fancy. You get some Japanese fish. You get a really nice tempura recipe, and you put it on a hair-burning plate, and you put it 63 floors up in the sky, and all of a sudden it's a fine dining dish. But it's really about me thinking about fish fries growing up and kind of missing being at home and trying to put that on the menu, right? And I think that is where it says, like, showing personality and like just having fun with it, because I think you can get really caught up in like the framework of what you think a 3-star menu is, and you're like, oh, it has to be this by this, and it has to be this, and it's like, not really, because for me, like, they're humans, right? They're gonna come here, and they're also humans, and if you can, strike that nerve, and even a Michelin inspector, like, you'll get there.
Well, if there's something a little familiar, it immediately, it kind of relaxes the anxiety or any stress that they might have about, oh my gosh, what is this on the menu? I want to talk a little bit about music. I don't know if you could see it all. So I got Marco Pierre White over here. That was a certain style in the kitchen, right? And we talked to a lot of thought leaders and chefs, all year long. And it always comes back to either motorcycles, music, and food, or all three. And I love reading. So I've got Fleetwood Mac and Dave Matthews
Mhm.
and some other folk. I think I have yeah, I got Bob Seger, Detroit, right there. I got Bob Seger up on the wall. Um, Bobby has a restaurant in Denver next to Tavernetta called Sunday Vinyl, and their whole thing is that his wife selects an album every night, and so they play that music, for
Mhm.
the customers. Um, it sounds like you've curated a sort of an R&B, 90s R&B playlist for Saga. I'm really curious how, I love this, by the way, how does music influence the energy
Mhm.
of your kitchen and your dining room? And does it catch people off guard a little bit?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it started in Brooklyn. And for me, it was important too because, like, a lot of the cultural aspect as well. Like, number one, like, I think music, wine, and food is like the perfect combination, right? Especially if you're cooking at
Oh gosh,
home.
yes,
I'm
yeah.
cooking at home to some music, a little bit of wine, right? And I think it like sets the mood and the tone, etc. But also, I think for me, it was also like I knew that Clover Hill was an open kitchen, but also like people, they may have saw the Michelin star, but they see this certain kind of food. And I knew that once they kind of heard the music, they were just going to be like, okay, like the connection is complete. Right. And I think like, it's like, okay, how else can I put my personality into the dining room besides just the food and what the servers are saying? But also like people feeling the vibe that I want to create in the space. Right. And I think that was important to me. And then it got more and more and more important to me. And I think it's just fun. It catches people off guard. I think, like, again, going back to what Saga was when it was open, Chef James was like, he wanted to be a little bit abrasive. He wanted to be new and modern. There was no tablecloths. It was no, big carts and no cheese carts. And there was no this pretentious feeling. And I'm like, okay, we would need to keep that going. And it's like, how many fine dining restaurants can you come at? And the music is a little bit louder than you expect. You can sing along a little bit. You catch a different kind of vibe, and like it just doesn't really exist in what we do, and I think that makes it a special experience, a place that you can actually have fun and laugh, and you can drop your fork, and you can maybe break a wine glass at the end of the meal, and you're a little bit embarrassed, but you won't feel like we're going to put you out and we won't ban you from the restaurant. And I think like some fine dining restaurants can make you feel that way a little bit, you know what I mean? Like they can make you feel like intimidated, and like you said, like it immediately makes people let their guard down. Immediately.
Yeah,
They get in the
yeah.
elevator here and they catch a vibe and they immediately feel comfortable. And then we know we have them to win them over, from that point on.
I love. I'm looking at one of the photos on the website, and just the color of the walls and the lights dim and the round tables, which sort
Mhm.
of welcome anyone to it, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Versus the stark 90 degrees and of course, the beautiful views from the from the high rise of New York City. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. So for students, chef, or young culinarians who are dreaming of running something like this or being an executive chef, of a major operation like this, are there is there a big difference between being the worker bee and being in charge? You mentioned, Daniel wasn't always cooking the food, but he was overseeing every operation,
Mhm.
everything that was happening. And sometimes that's a transition to go from being a great cook to being a great,
Mhm.
great manager, right? Of process. Um, are there some other skills that you would suggest that students should really try to focus on if this is their goal?
Well, I mean, I would say you got to respect the process and you got to be in love with the journey. And right. And that's also straight from Daniel himself, right? It's something that he spoke to me about. He was like, you have to fall in love with the journey. If you don't, like it just gets rough, right? So I think like, yeah, but it's in phases, right? Like when you're a young cook, you need to be a worker bee. You need to get as much experience as possible. You need to learn as much about food history as possible. You need to actually know what you're doing, right? You can make the sauce. What if the sauce breaks? What if it splits? Do you know what to do? Do you know why it happened? And then eventually when you get in a young sous chef, you got to start learning like leadership, and you got to start learning how to those people skills and how to connect with people. And I think that is where the real gold is at, right? Like small kitchen, you can learn through osmosis, just standing next to each other, right?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
can you can
yeah,
holler, you can fix, you can touch everything. But the moment you can't touch everything, and if you can't communicate effectively, if you can't inspire and like lead and like get inside their brain a little bit, oh, like you're gonna be, it's not gonna work out, you know? So I think like, some cooks, I think I probably shouldn't say this, but I think I say the sous chef is sometimes like the worst position in the kitchen, right? Because like, like you're not cooking as much and you're doing a little bit of paperwork, but you're not doing like all the administrative stuff, and you're kind of like in this middle zone. But so I
yeah,
think like before you get to that point, make sure you really feel comfortable with your cooking skills
yeah,
before you take
yeah.
that sous chef job. And then once you get that sous chef job, you really start to focus on like your actual like leadership ability, and not just if you're smarter than the cooks or you can tell them what to do. It's like, okay, but can you actually like lead this section, whether it's just a gourmet section or your AM section or whatever that section is? Like, are you actually like leading these kids? And I think like if you can do that combination of both, I feel like that's what the greats do. Like the greats, like they're just good at both, and it's incredible. Like, everybody wanted to work for Daniel. They want to work for James. They want to work for Thomas Keller. They want to work for, you know, Corey Lee and Granakis, right? I think like that is special, and for me as a young chef, I'm still, trying to build that. Like I want people to want to work here,
People
you know?
do want to work for Charlie Mitchell. I love that, and I'm glad you did share that. Um, and I want to be respectful of our time. We've got just a couple more things that I wanted to share, Chef. I really, really appreciate you taking the time today. I watched a great interview on YouTube over the weekend, and the person who interviewed you asked a great question. They said, "Who is Charlie Mitchell?" And I'd love to sort of steal that and say, "Who's Charlie Mitchell today?"
Well, hopefully it's the same. It's the same answer, which is, I still feel like I say, I'm the kid from Detroit who just loves cooking for people, you know, and I would say only difference is today is that I'm a lot more focused on, trying to use food as a language to really communicate a point of view and a perspective on hospitality and food and like the world of restaurants, because that's my love and that's my passion, so I would say that's who I am today.
I love that. That's a great answer. I just took a picture of us. I'm going to shoot it over to Bobby and say hello. So one final question, and I love this question. And everyone's answer is different. There's no quiz, Chef, but the name of the podcast is The Ultimate Dish. So in your mind, and I'm thinking that cornbread and caviar has got to come up somewhere here. But in your mind, what is the ultimate dish?
That's hard for me because I love food too much to pick a dish, so I'll cheat a little bit and I'll just pick a meal.
Oh, that's good.
To me, the ultimate dish is like a Thanksgiving meal.
Really?
Yeah, like I think like that's special. Whether your family does a potluck situation or whether you have one person who cooks it all. But I think anytime you can get, families and friends kind of gathered around the same meal together and break bread and drink a little bit and maybe argue a little bit, whatever y'all do in the family, play games, whatever. I think that's like the most special meal. So I'm gonna pick a Thanksgiving dinner.
I think that's a perfect answer. That is I'm not surprised by the answer from you. That's just, it's wonderful. By the way, respect the process and fall in love with the journey. We have a graduation this Saturday. We'll probably have 1,500 people there, many online students. I'm going to give you credit, but I'm totally going to open up with fall in love with the journey. Beautiful words. Beautiful words. Yeah. Chef, thank you so much for taking some time with us today.
Absolutely. Thank
Continued great success. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
I'll be in New York soon, and when I am gonna give you a call, I'm gonna come up. I'm gonna come up to the 63rd floor.
Please do. Well, I'd love to have you.
Thanks so much, Chef. Take good care.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Ultimate Dish Podcast, brought to you by Auguste Escoffier School of Culinary Arts. Visit escoffier.edu/podcast to find any materials mentioned during the podcast, including notes, links, and other resources. And if you can, Please leave us a rating on Apple or Spotify and subscribe to support our show. This helps us reach more aspiring individuals ready to take the next step toward their dream careers. Thanks for listening.